Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond Bakari. Today I'm joined by Paul Rianna Jr., who is running for Governor of Rhode Island as an independent. Paul, how are you today?
Doing good, and you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure of mine to have you on. You're currently running for governor. I believe it's been for about a year now, or a little over a year. I recall first seeing your campaign signs around this time last year. My first question is one you probably often get asked. What was the initial spark for your gubernatorial campaign?
Well, I'm tired of the people of Rhode Island not actually having representation, and Rhode Island needs representation. We, the people, need representation. The people in the nursing home needs representation. We all need representation, and we're not being represented correctly. We're being led by executive orders and other unconstitutional mandates, and we just need someone that's going to lead the people, and that person's going to be me.
And this is your first ever campaign for elected office. Before running, you were a CNA at was it Fatima you were a CNA at?
Yes, I was a mental health worker at Fatima. Yes.
Yep, you were working at Fatima, and this was right around the time the vaccine mandates started happening, and I believe that you said that what sparked it was the vaccine mandates. So with that being said, was it always going to be governor you were going to run for, or were there any other offices you were considering? Because the jump from the top statewide office, that's a big one.
No, it was always going to be governor. I always figured go big or go home. That was always my motto. I always want to reach the top, and the top is being governor of the state of Rhode Island and to actually lead the people. And I feel like my leadership would be great for Rhode Island.
So some may know your platform already if they've seen you on social media or heard that you're running. For those who don't know what you want to run on and what you plan to do as governor, what are some of the key parts of your platform in this campaign?
Well, I'm all about freedom. I'm all about following the Constitution. I'm all about making sure our children thrive in the state of Rhode Island. That's a big thing for me. Education's big. Activities, recreation centers. We need to get it to where it's affordable for all children as far as sports and all of that. My other platform is to make sure that everyone has affordable housing. That's a big thing. Homelessness is at an all-time high. I'm from South Providence. I grew up near Broad Street, and I see people sleeping on ripped benches, sleeping on the ground. They can't get into crossroads because they're late. They're sleeping on blankets on the stairs. It's disgusting. We need leadership now. We need housing now. And I'm going to represent all people, not just certain groups, certain agendas, all people.
One of the biggest parts of your campaign has been opposing the vaccine and mask mandates during the pandemic, and this is probably one that everybody watching is probably like, Ray has to ask this to Paul when he interviews him. So you're clearly against the vaccine and mask mandates. Why?
I don't believe anyone should be forced to be vaccinated. It should be a choice. Just like I feel like masks should be a choice. Children shouldn't be masked to go to school. It should be a choice within the parent, not be forced. I've always been about choice. Everyone always says, I'm anti-vaccine. Some people call me the anti-vax messiah, which I am not. I'm all about choice as far as the vaccine goes. And my thing is, no one should have lost their job due to a vaccine, especially when we were heroes at the beginning of the pandemic.
When it comes to the vaccine, one thing you may hear from the pro-mandate crowd is that there are already vaccines like the polio vaccine and a bunch of other ones that you have to get before your child can enter, say, a public school. For example, I needed to get a meningitis vaccine before I was able to go on campus this past year. When that's in consideration, are you still adamant about the choice argument?
I always hear this a lot, but most of the vaccines back then were childhood vaccines. The flu shot is optional within the hospital. One of the hepatitis shots are also optional. They're not mandated, but this COVID vaccine was mandated. They tried to force it on the healthcare workers. Why? Because the numbers weren't high enough. That's my thing. The numbers weren't high enough, so they forced it on the healthcare workers. and then the numbers started rising. That's my only thing as far as that goes.
And the mandates themselves. So for those watching who may not be from Rhode Island's typically a more democratic state. And the last time the mandates were polled, they were, I believe, it was in the high 60s. Are there any concerns that this may deter some voters away from your message, since you're against something that they may be for?
Well, I'm not going to be able to please everybody. The only thing I can do is get my platform out there. We're not going to agree on everything. I have other platforms just besides my anti-vax stance, which I'm not anti-vax, I'm pro-choice. But people need to understand that it should have been all about choice at the beginning. I had 2,500 healthcare workers marching with me through the city of Providence, that most of them lost their jobs, couldn't pay rent, couldn't pay their mortgage, couldn't afford to put food on their table. I even opened up a food pantry for people to go get food. That's how hard it was for these healthcare workers to be able to survive. And then some of them still didn't get unemployment, and some are still in limbo for unemployment.
Just a quick follow-up while we're still on the topic of the mandates before I move on to the next topic. So people who've probably seen the videos on Twitter, you've done things like confront the governor about things like this. I believe the Senate president you had confronted too in the state house, and you've led a lot of protests, like you had mentioned. You also there was a protest that you had organized, or I don't know if you organized or were a part of. It was outside State Senator Sam Bell of District 5's house, and that drew a little bit of controversy because it's one thing if you do it at the state house. It's a public property, and I know you did the one outside of Bell's house on the sidewalk, but it just drew controversy because you're outside the senator's home. I'm trying to be fair with this question, but do you consider that professional behavior for someone who wants to be governor?
I feel like before I was running for governor, I was always a man of the people. I always stood up for everyone's rights, and that's what I'm going to continue to do, being governor or not being governor. I'm still going to go with my gut instinct and with my heart. And I felt like Sam Bell had to let it be known that the people are fed up with mandates. The people are fed up with forced vaccinations. And the people are fed up with someone trying to fine people for a vaccine mandate. People don't want that. For him to make that bill is tyrannical on all levels. So me and him, we've tried to communicate. I tried phone calls and emails, never got a response. So just like with Dan McKee, I had to go to the residents. I even gave a heads up out of respect, due to his child. I gave him a heads up that I was going to be there and that we were going to protest. And we actually met up in the street and we had an argument back and forth, politely, no swearing or yelling or fighting, a polite disagreement. And he was like, it's fine to protest my house. And he walked away.
But with 2020 hindsight, do you feel it would have been better to do it at the Senate office of his, or just if you've seen him in the state house rather than outside his home? That seems a little invasive.
You can't catch people that are never in their office. The state house knows me from first name to last name. When I walk in, I have the Capitol Police greet me at the door. That's how much they know me. And I go to certain legislators' doors. They're not there. They don't want to respond. I leave my name, my number, my email, and no response. So how do you reach someone who actually represents you? Senator Sam Bell is the senator in my district, and he won't even get back to me. So what other way could I have gone about it? I tried all levels, Twitter, Facebook, email, and no response. So that's the level I had to take.
Focusing on a piece of legislation that was passed this session, I want to get your take on. It was to legalize recreational marijuana. It has some mixed opinions. I have seen some Republicans on board with it, and obviously most Democrats are. Where do you stand on this decision? Is it something you support?
I support legalization of marijuana. I think if it's handled correctly, it can benefit the state, but it has to be handled correctly and it has to be transparent and fair. It has to be 100% legit and not overtaxed, because it's cheaper to buy it on the street than if you're going to overtax it 20%. Now, I'm just being honest, coming from the neighborhood that I grew up in. You know, marijuana is cheaper to buy on the street. People grow it and, you know, sell it. And it's definitely cheaper to buy it that way than if you're going to tax it 20%. And that's my belief. But I think it does help people if it's legalized, and, you know, hopefully the crime rates can go down too.
What are your thoughts on the expunging criminal records for those who are disproportionately affected by the war on drugs?
It depends on what drugs. If it's just marijuana, and depending on how much, I think we could expunge records. That would be fine. But it would definitely have to be looked into by the Attorney General, and to make sure it's on the up and up, and it's not a huge amount of marijuana. If it's something nickel and dime, you know, something small, then yeah, I agree with expunging records. It'll help people to be able to get out there and be productive, get a job, and, you know, grow their future, you know, because the smallest thing on your record could keep you from being anything that you want to be.
Also in the news this session was, this was toward the end of the session, was the increased calls for common sense gun laws following the tragic mass shootings that occurred at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And then there was the one before that occurred in Buffalo, New York. It was at a grocery store. Rhode Island ended up passing 3 pieces of gun safety legislation you were opposed to. I'm going to summarize them for those watching. One law raised the age to 21 to purchase a firearm from 18. The other one limited the number of bullets in a magazine to 10 maximum. And then there was another one that restricted open carry in public with a shotgun or loaded rifle. You were one of the many protesters wearing the yellow shirts opposing those bills. Can you explain for those watching what issues you had with the bills?
Well, first off, as far as the 18 to 21, it's crazy that someone 18 years old can join the army, but can't purchase a gun. That boggles my mind 100%. They can go and kill for our country, but they can't protect themselves. You know, that's an issue that I have. I believe these gun laws are tyrannical. I believe the way it was passed was definitely disgusting. It didn't make it out of committee, and then they forced it from the House bill to the Senate, and they voted on it. So it was all a plan. They knew it wasn't going to come out of the committee. Senator Ruggiero and Joe Sacacci had the plan to screw we the people and send the House bill to the Senate, and that's how it passed.
And these bills came out of, you know, the calls for the common sense gun safety legislation after those tragic shootings. And those protesters with the yellow shirts did address that they were in favor of ideas like having metal detectors at schools. And I believe another idea was armed security officers to ensure kids can be safe in school. But when it comes to firearms, are there any pieces of gun safety legislation you could see yourself supporting?
Actually, right now, you got to follow the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and that's what I believe in heavily. If you're trying to protect children and students, why not have metal detectors? When I went to Hope, they had them. Why not have guards if you fear for their safety? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the House actually voted against the bill to have armed guards in school. You know, so how does it make sense? You're looking to protect students, children, and people within the school districts if you're voting against having an armed guard to protect the students.
Moving on to the issue of housing, this was one of the issues you highlighted at the top of the interview, creating more affordable housing. This is a topic that I consistently talk about on the show with elected officials and those seeking office. It's because it's a pressing issue facing Rhode Island. There is a housing crisis facing the state, as you had mentioned. As governor, what would be your plan to try and create more affordable housing?
Well, my plan would be there's a lot of abandoned houses and a lot of, you know, torn down houses, land that's not being used. To try to figure a plan to get that land at a cheap price and build on it. There's a lot of issues as far as being able to build, a lot of red tape, a lot of things you have to go through, which slows the process as far as being able to build affordable housing. You know what I mean? We need to look at the demographics of who needs what and where, and how we can get affordable housing built quickly and efficiently and make sure it's safe. Manton Heights has a mold issue. That building's been up forever. It needs to be renovated. It's still the same way it was 20 years ago. Hoffman Projects, they got their renovation. Chad Brown, still moldy, having issues, and all of that needs to be renovated. So we also have to look at, we need more affordable housing, but we also got to take care of people that are living in affordable housing, that are living in rough and tough conditions.
Another issue that you highlighted at the top that I want to talk about as well, that's also a key issue, I should say, going into 2022 is education. Sometimes you hear calls for more charter schools or maybe even school choice. Sometimes there's calls to fix the crumbling buildings, maybe even implement universal pre-K, increase teachers' pay. There's a number of ideas that come up in the conversation of education, and it's something that the next governor is definitely going to have to focus on. I know this might be a bit of a loaded question, and we'll go into more specifics, but what would be your vision for Rhode Island's education system?
Well, the vision for Rhode Island's education system, through my eyes, that we have to look at the cause of the problem. Why are not students thriving? Why aren't they succeeding in the school system? Is it the buildings? Is it the lack of resources? Are they not getting, enough help from the teachers and the teachers' assistants? What is it that we can do to help the students of Rhode Island? That's what we got to look into. The big picture. What is the problem? We keep investing and we keep trying to figure out what program does what, but we all need to come together and look at the big picture on why the students are failing.
And that often looking at the root causes, one thing I typically hear from conservatives is the destruction of the nuclear family. Do you think that might be one of the causes that might be hurting inner city kids in schools?
A lot of, inner city children, don't have a full family a lot of the time. I think that can be an issue, but I think we have to help them on both levels. As far as the home life and school life, we have to have them thrive in both ways. And I feel like it's hard for children, if they're having a problem at home, they come to school with the problem and it's on their mind. There's got to be a way to where we can help both problems and have them actually learn and grow and strengthen their mind educationally without worrying about what's going on at home. We have to figure out that problem. And Rhode Island has failed the students time and time again. Look at Providence is, diminishing. My son was in Providence schools and just saying he didn't do well.
Looking at the situation in the Providence schools, typically there's one side that calls for more charter schools in the city of Providence. Would you favor an expansion of charter schools as governor?
Charter schools are pretty good. They help more. They actually, have a plan. I know a lot of kids go to charter schools and they actually really enjoy it and like it. I'm out in the community talking to the children. I go to the basketball court to speak to them, and they say they like the charter school. They go to a charter school near Douglas Ave. I think it's called Times 2. I'm not 100% sure, but they like it. They enjoy it. They feel like they get more attention. And, that's a great thing. So I think charter schools are good for Providence. I'm also not against school choice. I would have to look into it more before I can make a decision. But I definitely want to see all Rhode Island students thrive.
Where do you stand on ideas like universal pre-K?
Universal pre-K is good, because sometimes kindergarten, it gets a little rough and, the children ain't ready to go to first grade. So yeah, I could see doing a universal pre-K, to give them that extra year of building, learning and growing and getting more mature. I did pre-K and, I turned out pretty well.
These next few, are you familiar with the lightning round style of questions on the show?
I'm ready for it.
So we're going to do 1 to 2 word, try to keep them as brief as possible. Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
Pro-life.
If elected, which out of the current lieutenant governor candidates would you like to serve with?
None, but
None of them?
None of them.
Should the governor have line item veto power?
Yeah, why not?
Should the members of General Assembly have term limits?
Yes, I agree on that 100%. Everyone needs term limits.
And you're in the 2nd congressional district, correct?
No.
Oh, you're not? Okay. Well, all right, I'll ask for both of them then in this case, because the 2nd district is getting a little more attention. For CD1, since you're in there, who do you plan to support for that one?
Actually, I haven't looked into that, and I've been trying to focus on my own race. So I actually don't agree with any of the candidates that are running though.
How about for CD2?
CD2, I like Bob Lancia.
Bob Lancia? Okay. And shifting to my final question, it's a non-political topic. It takes a step away from all the political issues. In your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
Right now, I think Rhode Island is best known for tyranny and vaccine mandates, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure of mine to have you on.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate you. You're awesome, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping Rhode Island be transparent, and we appreciate you all here.
Thanks. That means a lot. And thank you for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future episodes as soon as they're posted on this channel, please click the subscribe button down below and the post notification bell icon to the right of it. I'm Raymond Bakari, and I'll see you on the next episode.